Dwight Howard is once again in the news. The Lakers need a new backup center with DeMarcus Cousins tearing his ACL. And there is a debate as who they should sign between Dwight, Joakim Noah, Mo Spates, and Marcin Gortat. And I think the fact that there is a debate about who the Lakers should sign between those four says a lot about how far Dwight Howard has fell off. I mean, not too far back in NBA history, Dwight was one of the 5 best players in the NBA, maybe top 3 at some points. And that might come as a surprise to some of you, either because you were not a fan back then, or you just forgot. So I decided, based off of some things that I've heard people say about Dwight Howard in the past few days, that I would do something that I did a long time ago with Carmelo Anthony, and go over the history of Dwight Howard as a player, look at how truly dominant he was, and figure out how he fell from grace.
Absolutely incredibly with the acrobatic alley-oop.
Dwight Howard was drafted number 1 out of high school in the 2004 draft to the Orlando Magic, and to showcase just how truly different the NBA was back then, Dwight was drafted as a power forward. He averaged 12 and 10 with nearly 2 blocks a game as a rookie, but that was a bit of a letdown with the hype surrounding Dwight Howard out of high school. In his second year, those stats jumped up to 16 points and 12.5 rebounds. But it was his next season where Dwight Howard would truly jump up in talent. Steve Francis was gone, and Grant Hill was sadly declining because of injury, which meant Dwight Howard was the no-question number 1 option. And with that, he averaged 18 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks on 60% shooting. Dwight made the All-Star team, and the Magic made the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Next year, the Orlando Magic signed and traded for Rashard Lewis, and with the extra spacing, Dwight was able to average 21 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks, shooting 60% from the field yet again. With the construction of the Magic roster, Dwight literally had 4 40% 3-point shooters around him in the starting lineup, giving Dwight all the room in the world to work in the paint. The Magic would win 50 games, but lose in the second round to the aging Detroit Pistons, with Dwight really struggling in that series, averaging just 15 on 50% shooting. The following season, he would win his first Defensive Player of the Year award, averaging 20 and 14 again, along with 3 blocks a game, which was the best in the league. The Magic won 59 games, just short of 60, and they made it all the way to the NBA Finals. Dwight Howard was a bona fide superstar at this point, and the Magic having this many shooters around Dwight meant a truly dominant player in the paint seldom had to deal with double teams, because the double teams would always result in a wide open 3 from a lethal 3-point shooter. This was an offense that was pretty ahead of its time, albeit with a different kind of superstar. Typically, today's superstars are wing versatile scorers, but still, the Magic embraced an offense that was fundamentally designed around the 3-pointer, which is not something too common to see in the 2000s. As we should all know, the Magic lost to the Lakers in 5 games, as they were pretty much expected to do, but still, when you think about it, Dwight was the last big man to lead his team to a finals appearance. The last team led by a big man to make the finals. The big man era really died with Dwight Howard. Over the next 2 years, Dwight put up phenomenal averages again, averaging 20, 14, and 2.5 blocks, winning 2 more consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards, but the Magic would disappoint in the playoffs, and the help around Dwight would slowly deteriorate, and as a result, he asked for a trade from the Magic, which ended up essentially being the end of his career. While Dwight Howard was fine statistically in LA, a bit of a drop-off but still good, he had a bunch of off-court and chemistry issues with the team, so he ended up with the Houston Rockets, where once again, Dwight Howard was good on paper, but there were chemistry issues. Same thing happened in Atlanta and in Charlotte. What seems to be the issue everywhere he goes is playing well with others. When you look at Dwight on the Magic versus the Lakers and the Houston Rockets, The main difference was a second star. I personally believe that Dwight was pretty much 80% as talented as he was on the Magic with the Lakers and the Houston Rockets. But Dwight did not play well with Kobe Bryant or James Harden and did not fit well when delegated to the second option, making a mess of both of those teams. Another issue with that was that Dwight, who very well could have been the best pick and roll player of all time, refused to play in the damn pick and roll. He constantly instead demanded the ball in the post. And Dwight wasn't the worst post player in the world, especially in Orlando, but Dwight was best in the pick and roll, and yet he refused to be a roll man. It was a big issue between Dwight and Steve Nash. And I think that this unwillingness to run the pick and roll in favor of a post up pretty much was a good indicator of what his personality was like and his ego. A post up is something you really only give to a star big man like Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, whereas being a pick and roll man is more of a Clint Capella type of thing. So I personally think in Orlando, Dwight was put in the right situation for his ego, given many post possessions and not having a ball dominant star to take the spotlight away from him. In Orlando, he had no conflicts. When he went to LA, he had conflicts with his ego and he crumbled in that situation. Many reports of Dwight being a locker room cancer came out of this situation. But when it comes to talent, let me put this into perspective. Dwight averaged 16.5 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks on 56% shooting with the Charlotte Hornets in the 2017-18 season. That was in 30 minutes a game. If you bump that up to per 36, he averaged 20, 15, and 2 blocks. More rebounds than he ever averaged in his career, and the same 20 points per game that he was putting up in Orlando. He had a 30 and 30 game that year. Now, I am not suggesting that Dwight Howard is anywhere near as talented as he was in Orlando, but I think it's fair to say he's 50% as talented as he was in Orlando, and a player that is 50% of what prime Orlando Dwight Howard was is still a pretty damn good NBA player, still a starting center on most teams in the NBA. But because of the fact that Dwight doesn't play well with others, his best chance at making an NBA roster is from a sudden need with DeMarcus Cousins tearing his ACL. Dwight is supremely talented and is still pretty talented, but mentally he keeps holding himself back. It's very similar to the whole Carmelo Anthony situation, but I think Dwight Howard is actually a good bit more talented still. So this is an even more sad and frankly shameful situation. Anyways, that is the end of this video. I'm close to 50k, so if you could subscribe, I would really appreciate that. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and cue the outro music.